Members, the question is that the motion be agreed. I give the call to the Honourable Kyle McGinn.
Thank you, Acting President. And what an honour it is to talk on this motion today. It feels like a full 360 from the last term, looking over at the crossbench section and reminiscing on some of the most dreadful speeches I've ever heard in history that were written by CME. And, you know, none better than the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse. That contribution of the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse to the gold tax debate was woeful and quite frankly arrogant. Very Liberal Democrat, sorry? Are you going to listen to my speech or are you just going to dribble? Like, just give me a minute to fire up, mate. I'm sorry, I can't just jump straight in and just give me a minute. Right, so I was talking about the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse's, sorry, the Honourable Peter Collar, did that get you going a little bit there, mate? But the Honourable Aaron, I get an interjection as soon as I stood to my feet. You know, let's be honest. You know, it's pretty funny. You know, Acting President, it feels like people just want to talk to me when I'm on my feet. But it is quite amusing listening from the crossbench talking about agreeing with increasing royalties when I had to listen to the Honourable Colin Ticknell, the Honourable Robin Scott, the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse, the Honourable Rick Mazza, the Honourable Charles Smith, I can't remember the National Party, but there was a National Party was there, the Liberal Party was there, the Liberal Party was even there with mining companies paying workers to protest our offices, actually, which was quite the funniest picket line I think I've ever seen, to be honest. So out in the goldfields, for example, there was over 1,400 workers that were on pay to go and protest my office with the hang on a second, just to clarify. Can you hold your tongue for a second? I'm just dealing with this interjection.
Order.
I was talking about the mining companies paying their workers to attend rallies, the Honourable Peter Collier. Also like the rallies that were here at Parliament where they were handing out high-vis shirts to people off buses as they got to the front doorstep to make it look like they were working for mining companies. But I was one of the members that had, you know, about 1,000 workers who were getting paid to protest my office because their employer was being told, we're going to sack you all if the mining tax comes in. $14 a tonne is just too much. And what happened straight after that, I think we've seen an increase of almost $1,000 go on to the gold price across the world. Went from around $1,500 to $2,500, and $14 was considered breaking the bank. And I know that the former member for Kalgoorlie, Kyron O'Donnell, was a huge advocate. We can't do this. We can't do this to the goldfields. We only have one economy and that's it. That was his view. That was his very narrow view. Clearly that served him really well in the last election. But you could see what happened when, and the Honourable Wilson Tucker, just to let you know, what happened when we did try to introduce the gold tax in 2017. Absolute hysteria. It was really insane to see how the Liberal National Party reacted to that. I didn't see them after that going out there and asking companies to get better at their social licence. I don't think I've seen the Liberal Party or the National Party ask once for more full-time employment or more training or more apprentices or any of the stuff that is good for economy building. I find that quite amusing. I will though say that the biggest backflip today has probably been the Greens. I find it quite a refreshing difference from the last House, where the Greens brought a motion to this chamber to completely shut down the oil and gas industry overnight. It was unbelievable. The Honourable Tim Clifford brought a motion to this chamber, typical Greens fashion, not much research, not much understanding what would happen, just come in and said, close the oil and gas industry overnight. We need to get rid of it right now. No plan on it. And what was really amusing was that the Honourable Tim Clifford came from the oil and gas industry and worked on Barrow Island. So it would have been paying his mortgage at the time with oil and gas profits. So to see that the Greens have now gone back from just close the industry to tax the industry. It's an interesting flip. And I will side with the Minister who's put it very eloquently that the McGowan government has done a fantastic job managing the finances of this state, a far better job than the previous government that did a disastrous job. There was no ability for Scrooge McDuck in the last government because there was always an empty room because they were spending like drunken sailors. And then they also had the National Party with their own bank card and ATM off there going brrrr, just flicking hundreds everywhere they could, without business cases, without plans, without even consulting the old almighty Emperor, without even consulting the Emperor at the day. Sorry?
I can't believe you represent regional Western Australia. He's the greatest.
Can I just say that we had 4 representatives in the mining and pastoral election, and that came from the last election, member. 4 mining and pastoral members. And yes, I do represent regional WA. Absolutely I do, and I'm proud of that. Honestly, you really need to take the time, as I've said many a times, to educate yourself before you open your mouth. So I will touch on what the Honourable Wilson Tucker mentioned. He mentioned that he raises this on behalf of the WA people. I'm still waiting for you to raise daylight savings, the Honourable Wilson Tucker. It's been. I'm waiting for you to get on your feet and give me a big speech on, because your credibility in this chamber, comes from being a big supporter of daylight savings. So I would love to have listened to you speak for a good hour on daylight savings, so I could understand why my electorate, which was the least in favour of voting for daylight savings, elected you as a member for mining and pastoral. Talk about representing the regions. Oh wow, I get an agreement from the Honourable Neil Thompson. Oh, I should hang up my hat now and retire. Oh my God. Also sky high profits. I'd like to know the difference between the profits when you came into this chamber in 2021 to now. It would have been good to see a breakdown of what was different from a couple of years ago and why you didn't run on a platform of increasing taxes when you ran at the election. I would be very interested to see what the difference was, because I don't think it was much, the Honourable Wilson Tucker. And that is one of my questions to you, is what is the difference between when you were running in the election to now, that all of a sudden you want to see royalties increased? What was different when you were running in the election? Well, why didn't you put it in your platform right next to daylight savings that you care about? Well, I didn't see. Well, a single issue that we haven't heard about in this chamber. A single issue that we haven't. The Honourable Wilson Tucker, if today's motion. No, you can't. I accept that. But you could have brought it to this chamber today.
Order.
To have a genuine motion debate.
Might I get you to direct your comments through the chair, honourable member?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You can continue.
Daylight savings, acting president, is what I'm talking about. That's what I wanted to hear today. I was genuinely wanted to understand why I should have more sunlight in the morning or the afternoon. It's too much for me. That's too much for me. So. One of the things that did come out of the scare tactics from the opposition during the gold tax era of 2017, which actually, as members in this place that were here would know, came back with the second version, which had a floor, 1450, similar to the floor that you're talking about, in respect if the resource goes to under that floor, then the tax would fall away. That was still rejected, mind you, by the opposition, who actually, during the debate, put that up as one of the solutions as to what could see that go through as a gold tax. I remember it distinctly because CME sent out new notes for the second bill saying, we still oppose it because it's a tax. Yep. You know, like, what are you supposed to do there? Like, you had the opposition and the crossbench basically getting their speech notes directly from CME, straight from CME's gob. It was quite funny to watch. It was quite funny to watch because I had the same notes that they sent to me getting read out back to me. It was really funny, and there was this huge threat that there was going to be mass job losses of $14 an ounce. But one thing I said in my speech, and I reiterated throughout that debate, was something that if you put the tax stuff to a side, do you think that the gold industry has a good social licence in the goldfields? The Honourable Neil Thompson just gave me the click, which I think means yes. Let's look at the difference. Let's look at the difference between the iron ore industry up north and the gold industry out in the goldfields. When you go into Karratha, or you go into Port Hedland, or you go into Newman, the first thing you notice is that Rio Tinto's there, that BHP's there, that FMG's there. They're investing on the ground in the communities, and no one can dispute that. You've got art centres, you've got cultural centres, you've got hospitals, you've got football teams, you've got everything getting sponsored. And I said this last time during the gold tax debate. When you go out to the goldfields, it's a completely different story. It was almost like the gold industry was completely different and it was untouchable. And some of the things that I remember members from this side said to the opposition was, I hope when you were out there protesting us to increase the gold royalty, that you would actually get a backbone and go and tell some of these companies that had no Aboriginal employment, no female employment, no full-time workers, no apprentices. If you actually went and told them companies that you were so proudly lobbying for not to pay $14 extra an ounce, how about you go tell them to get a decent social licence? And what's happened since then? I've heard nothing from the opposition in that space. Absolutely nothing. You know, oh, we did our job, we got rid of the nasty tax and that's that. Well, it's a shame that you don't go out there and fight more. I think that the oil and gas companies and the mining companies, and I've said this from the day I got in this chamber, should be doing more training, should be doing more, giving more jobs, having more of a social licence, should be investing in local, buy local policies, procurement policies, such as the WA jobs policy that we have, that the McGowan government brought in. We had a great debate the other day about procurement policies that this government has. What a brilliant government leading the way on local employment and local procurement. I just wish that some of their mining companies and oil and gas companies would listen and make a step in their own direction. And it's the smaller ones as well. It's not just the big Ben 10s. It's the ones that get away with not employing local. And COVID has proven one thing. They now have to get off their backsides and do something about it. Because they know that if something goes wrong again, they could be shut off from flying in foreign workers or flying in workers from over in the East Coast. The reliance in the oil and gas and the mining sector on foreign workers prior to COVID was insane. I remember having a debate with former Jobs Minister, I think, Michaela Cash, who came out to, I think it was Honourable Michaela Cash, came out to Kalgoorlie, and there was a job shortage going on back in 2017-18, just when we've seen the federal Liberal National Government decimate our car industry. And we had over 45,000 hard workers, skilled workers, that could have come across from South Australia and Victoria, but instead we've seen Michaela Cash implement a Dharma agreement. And the Dharma agreement was designed to bring people over, and I was told for them to live in the goldfields. As soon as that agreement got off the ground, it was discovered that they were to live in Perth and be FIFO to the goldfields with absolutely no economic impact on the local area whatsoever. Shameful. And then what happened? COVID hit and they couldn't fly them in anyway. So, you know, we missed out on like a workforce of over 45,000 out of the car industry that if we had focused on getting them placed into the goldfields would have been, in my view, some of the best hard-working skilled workers across this country and could have slipped into our mining industry very well. The Honourable Wilson Tucker, I really want to see us focus inside and outside of this chamber in the mining and pastoral electorate on constantly, and I don't care what party you're from, talking to these mining and oil and gas companies about what they can do for the local community, what they can do better. Because I think there's a stark difference between the big end of town and the middle end of town and the low end of town. And there's some that do some really good work, there's some that do absolutely nothing. And I think the commodities also dictate that as well. As I said before, you go up north and you see them everywhere. I still am in awe of the brilliant job that BHP have done with the Cultural Centre in Newman. I know that Acting President would be very aware of that, and what they've done for the community there has uplifted them unbelievably with their culture and their artwork. And that was solely a BHP project. And then we...
Because where did they invest in it? The Edmund version too?
There's a Karratha one, which I think they invested with the federal government. That's Rio, sorry.
Yeah, it was Rio.
It's Rio Tinto, I think, in Karratha, BHP in Newman, and I'm not sure if there was a cultural centre in Headland, but
I thought
Spinifex, that's right. But I will say in Headland, BHP with the hospital in Headland invested very well as well. But then we go and, like for example, we were talking about Laverton in 2017. And we made a comment to the mining companies how much is actually coming back into Laverton after 2.6 billion was going out. It was next to nothing. And when we asked about how about putting your shoulder to the wheel and being with the community and building this, oh, it was blue murder. It was insane. And to be fair, Corin O'Donnell attacked me for even thinking about it. But it was, again, very short-sighted by Corin O'Donnell. But look, I think the Honourable Wilson Tucker, I think just seen some low-hanging fruit, which was tax the commodities. I would have preferred to have seen a more of a strategic, I would have loved to have seen something on daylight savings. I'm still hanging for that debate. I'm looking forward to it.
It's a hot topic now. It's applicable right now. There's a window.
What was different in 2021 in March?
I'll get to your comment.
What was different? Because,
I didn't have a platform. There was.
Oh, but remember, you've got a platform for daylight savings, and I still don't know what it is.
About royalty increases.
I still don't actually know if it's night time or
Single issue
morning
party.
time that I get more daylight.
The answer's in the name. Single issue party.
Okay. So and look, I genuinely mean it. I genuinely want to have a debate because I can tell you, there's one party in this chamber that has never ceased to amaze me on how they've injected marijuana into every single debate in this chamber. So much so that he educated me on putting marijuana into fish, so that the fish didn't have mental health issues. I have to say the Honourable Brian Walker has done a superb job at advocating for what he stands for. And I would love to see the Honourable Wilson Tucker bring some more debates around daylight savings and just so that I can explain to my electorate daylight savings, because at the moment I have absolutely no clue what it's about.
Just at the end of this term.
Oh, again, low-hanging fruit, have a dig. How about?
McGowan government was the one that completely
you know, it's funny.
Not me.
I feel that if you were advocating strongly enough, member, for daylight savings, you may get a chance to get the whole of Western Australia on board by the end of this term. I'd like to see. I have seen some good ads getting around there too, member, about daylight savings. I've seen the. I haven't seen the sunsuit for a while though. Now I'm going to take a cheap trick here. Whereabouts in mining and pastoral is your office, member? Whereabouts in my electorate do I find your office, member? Oh yes. I wonder if it's out in the goldfields or whether it's out in beautiful Port Hedland, where I know the Honourable Steve Dawson has a beautiful office in Port Hedland, and South Hedland. Whoa, blasphemy. But look, thank you, member, for bringing this motion into the House, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the debate, and look forward to seeing your response at the end.